people online hear me? See.
There.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here. As you know, I'm Shannon Tucker, Executive Director. I have been with the Speech and Hearing Center since 2000. So an amazing 22 years with an amazing organization that I'm very proud of being part of that time. I've been the Executive Director for 12 years as well. As Angie knows, I've done almost every job possible, I think, at this company. So just to give you a brief introduction. So Charlotte Speech and Hearing Center has two offices. Most of you probably know our office on Kenilworth, just around the corner, share a building with the Board of Elections there, and we have the bottom floor. But we often opened an office in Monroe in 2015. So that is a really lovely spot that we are excited to have right on 74 in Monroe. We had an office or a space, I should say, in Union County back in like the early 80s for a while. That closed down, so we're really excited to expand our presence there. So that's our physical building, but you'll learn a lot more today that we do way more outside of our buildings.
Why won't we do?
We're trying to progress the slide here. Hold on a second.
There we go.
There we go. So a little bit more background for you. Some of you know this year we're celebrating our 55th anniversary, which is really amazing. We're founded in 1967 by the Junior League of Charlotte, as you see. We're the first and are now still the only community speech and hearing center in the state, actually. And our mission is to provide access to superior speech, language, and hearing services that empower and transform lives. And Angie and Julie are going to share a little more directly about the scope of our mission, which it might surprise some of you. Angie also has been here since 2000. She and I started the same year, almost the same month. So it's been great to have her along for the ride.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about speech pathology. I'm very passionate about it. I feel like I was really fortunate at the time of career that was me, that I could completely submerge myself into. So speech language pathologists, while they do work across the lifespan, we work mostly in pediatrics. And we do all kinds of stuff. So we work with kids who have difficulty with eating and swallowing. We work with kids who have difficulty saying letters and being understood. We work with children who have language delays from a myriad of different reasons that kids have difficulty communicating. We work with children who stutter and have fluency disorders. That's kind of my passion. That's something that I really love. And I actually work with a lot of adults who stutter as well. In the last couple of years, especially, well, even before COVID, we had already branched out into teletherapy. So I do work with a lot of adults, and a lot of that is via teletherapy. Of course, fluency disorders impact people's ability to have relationships, careers. It's really across the entire domain of life. So I was fortunate to find out about speech pathology right when I first got to Appalachian. All I knew is I wanted to go to Appalachian. And I had a cousin who lived up there and introduced me to the field, and I just really fell in love with it. While we do have a wide range of things that we do, we work with a lot of kids right now that are on the autism spectrum. When Shannon and I started in 2000, it was about 1 in 300 kids that were being diagnosed with autism. And now we are at 1 in 50 in the state of North Carolina, 1 in 53. And yes, our methodology for finding those kids, locating them, has gotten better, but there are more kids with spectrum disorder now than there were, just flat out. And I could talk about that forever. But it is a very debilitating disorder for a lot of children and a heartbreaking situation for a lot of families. One of the nice things about my job and being the director is that I get to spend a lot of time helping families piece all of this together. A lot of times the first thing that happens is that the kids just aren't talking, right? So that's a lot of times the first red flag. So sometimes we're the first professional besides a pediatrician that a kid needs to see. So diagnosis and helping families find those community resources is a really big part of what I do. I serve on several boards that deal with children, birth to 5, really kids under 8. And so my job is to connect and communicate, know what's available through Novant, know what's available through CMS, and get parents connected into all of those things. So it's wonderful being at Charlotte Speech and Hearing Center. I get the time to do that. I would not get that in a for-profit organization. I wouldn't have the time to go do the parent training that I do a lot of one-on-one with parents and group training with parents, as well as with teachers. So it's a really phenomenal position to be in. I feel really fortunate I get to do that. So we do have the clinic. We do, especially in afternoons, we are rock and roll. We got kids that come in after school. We're busy till 6 p.m. every night seeing patients. But during the day, we're out in the community. So we have Head Start, Mecklenburg County. We have several other preschools that we go to. We do some in-home therapy, but we go out into the community to do our work. And we do this traditional speech therapy. That is part of what we do. But we also do some grant-driven, community needs-based work. So that is the grant work that we do. It's called the Community Language Literacy Impact Program. And we have 3 different programs. They're divided by age. And again, most of what we do is 18 months to about 8 years old, the majority of our kids. So I'll tell you a little bit about each one of the programs that we do. So Sound Beginnings is our Birth to 2 program. We go into specific corridors. Most all of this is corridor based, okay? So it's place based. It's very strategic what communities we go into and how we do our work. With this age group, we do a lot of stimulation in the classroom. So we do a lot of trying to get kids to learn how to babble, to do early communication. We call it early literacy. I don't believe in the term pre-literacy. I don't let anybody say it in our clinic. It's all early literacy. It all builds the communication, the sound production, the expressive and receptive language, all builds into becoming good readers. And we start it very, very young. The other component of this is a strong family component where we actually have parents come in and work their way through a program that is research driven. And so we spend a lot of time helping the parents understand their children's developmental milestones, how to build kids that are ready to communicate. We have the Apple a Day program. This is the one you can see these sweet little kiddos here. This would be at a Head Start classroom. And so we're working with the kids that are 3 to 5, and we're trying to get them ready for kindergarten. Some of these kids, and especially this year, some of these kids have hardly been out of their homes. So what we're seeing this year is kids with very, very low language. They've had very little exposure. Language comes from exposure. It comes from experience. A lot of times, if you can't have experiences, you can at least have books, right? That's why reading is so important to kids, because it gives them a type of experience. So we're finding lots of kids with low-level language that just have not had the experiences that other kids have had. We're going to see that in kids from low socioeconomic economic housing. So they're already kind of behind, and now after 2 years of kind of being stuck at home, we're seeing even more of that. But this is a targeted program that really, really works on helping them with their language skills. Then we take it up, and the advanced literacy through language program. This is the one we do with older kids. So we go into a couple of schools. We're in Renaissance West, Stephen County, we're in Billingsville, connects with what we all working in that Sedgefield kind of area, connects with the club's goals. But we go in and we do after school programs. We do summer programs. And then at Renaissance West, we work with those kids all through the school year. And we are really working on vocabulary development and expressive language skills. Because these kids are, again, they've already started out kind of behind. We know that their exposure is so much less than what you get from a family where there's at least one person who finished high school or even had college level training. So we got a lot of work to do with those kids, but they love it. This is one of our signature programs, the YOLA, which is yoga and language. This was created by one of our speech therapists who is a pediatric yoga instructor. And when she came in to interview for her job, to interview with me, she just was passionate. She's talking about, I want to use yoga. I want to help kids heal from trauma. I want to use what I've got. And I hired her that day, and I was like, let's do it. And we had this program built in no time. So we go into, again, a lot of places where kids are disadvantaged, and we use yoga and we use mindfulness. If you don't know, I mean, it's a buzzword right now, mindfulness, I think a little bit, but it's really about helping kids kind of be present, learning how to self-regulate, learning how to kind of gain some self-control skills. We use this program, we take pieces of children's literature and we create yoga poses, breathing exercises, and mindfulness techniques based out of children's literature. So it's a really phenomenal way to teach. And we've had great success with it. And in fact, we've had so much success with it that we now sell this program to private daycares. So we've got a couple of different places that pay us to come in and do it. So it's not all grant-based, right? So that was a big coup for us when we were able to actually sell the programs, right? So we're an interesting mix, right? Because we have people that pay for therapy, we have people that pay for the program, but we have a lot of folks that can't. So we're a little bit like Robin Hood, okay? We just want to take whatever we make, we want to put it right back into the community. And that's a little bit how we operate. We've had phenomenal outcomes. I love that everybody is asking this question now. What are your outcomes? What's your proof? I mean, I feel like we started talking about that in this club really this year, right? It's been fairly recent we started saying, show me, right? Show me what you can do, show me the proof. So we had a fabulous board member whose wife worked for UNC Charlotte, and she did statistical research for us. And so through collaboration, we were able to get some outcome data that shows, I mean, we've got pages of this. It's pretty little graph that we put together for you. That the programs that we're really working on, this school age vocabulary, you can see we're coming across and kids are making huge gains. Same thing is happening in our Apple a Day, which is that preschool readiness program. The nice thing about it is that we're seeing it, and we're seeing it across genders, and we're seeing it across races. We're seeing that those kids are all benefiting from the program. We try to be very thoughtful and diverse. We're making significant investments in having more diversified materials and having books and games and programs that show all the kids that we work with. So that's been a big investment that we're working on this year, is to diversify ourselves and to show everybody that they all matter and to be more inclusive. Is that me? Okay. All right. So Julie is going to come. Julie, next.
Yeah.
And come talk a little bit about the audiology services. And then if you guys have questions, we can talk more about this when she's finished.
Thank you. All right, so again, I'm Julie Palazzolo. Giving you a little bit of background on our audiology and our scope of practice. Again, a lot of you are familiar with the concept of audiology, hearing aids, but we definitely do a whole lot more than that. We definitely see children and adults for hearing aids, which again, is something that most people just kind of think adults losing their hearing over time. And we have found that we are seeing even more and more children that are coming in at earlier ages with hearing loss. Again, things that have been untreated because of being at home during the pandemic with their families for a couple of years, and just now finally recognizing that as they get back into the classrooms and that they do have that hearing loss component going on. 1 in 5 children is now found with hearing loss like that. Again, that's not a huge number, but it's definitely something that we are seeing more of and considering. When you go on the other end of the spectrum, when I see patients that are 75 and 80 years older, we're seeing 3 out of 4 of those individuals having hearing loss. So definitely, there is a need in our community. There is a great need for our types of services that we have. So our services are very unique in how we come across. So we have patients that come in that have no financial need whatsoever, come in, they are a private pay patient, but we also have a variety of patients that come in that do need some sort of assistance when it comes to a hearing aid or services or getting the right thing for them. So we work with a variety of programs through the state and through our own programs that we have created ourselves to come up with options to help people to afford something like a hearing aid. Our Hearing Services Bank program is very unique to our area here. What this allows us to do is to consider what the individual is working with when it comes to financial capabilities, how many in the household, things like that that we can consider to offer some sort of discounted rates on our services for them. Again, I say discounted rate. The service itself is no change. The service that I provide or the service that Ron provides is the exact same service that someone would get if they go to a high-end office or the premium ear, nose, and throat doctors in town. They're going to get the same level of service. They're going to get the same products available. They're going to get everything. They're just going to be seeing Ron and I would like to think that that's a positive because we are spectacular and that. But the service, the hearing aids, the things that you're getting, there is no change. There is nothing that you're getting rid of or that you're losing coming into Charlotte Speech and Hearing Center as a nonprofit.
All yours.
All right. And you can see on that last slide, excuse me, during the pandemic, we had the opportunity here with this slide right over here. The opportunity presented itself because it presented it to everyone, and we had to pivot and do things different and provide services differently, just because of the nature of being closed down and things like that. And so just like our friends over on the speech side were able to do teletherapy, we were able to do services that were provided out in the parking lot. We were able to provide our full range of hearing aid services. We were able to do testing. We bought specialized equipment so that we could do testing out in the parking lot. We were able to keep our whole level of consistent programming and our level of service the same, just by thinking outside the box and doing a couple little different things to make sure that people in our community that needed to hear and needed our services were still able to come in and receive our services.
Yeah. I'm gonna hand it back to you.
Thank you, Julie. Wanted to share a little bit about our community engagement. You probably heard me mention today about parent training and parent connections and screenings. So other than just a direct service, they didn't give themselves that credit. I mean, the speech and hearing team, they're everywhere. They're on Saturdays, they're in the evenings, doing screenings outside in parks, in churches, schools. It's really another part of what we do is getting out to the community and identifying people, giving them resources and ideas, going in the right direction. So that's just another way we're out engaging with the community. Did want to give you a big thank you to the Rotary for sponsoring our 5K event last year. Emily wanted to share a few pictures with you, including her adorable little guy in his Oscar costume, because that's our mascot, and we can't beat that. So thank you for that. It was a great event. We're really excited to have more people come out and learn about us. And I'm like, we just came to run. We never heard of you before, so it was a good opportunity to be out in the community. The one picture up there at the top is actually in Union County, where we were having a presence, but a lot of the community didn't know we were there. They heard Charlotte Speech and Hearing Center, but didn't know we were there in Monroe. So we did a really cool linking through literacy, like book drive for some of the sites that we started that had little ones with very few books. As you all know, that's an issue there. So we were able to engage some of the community around that effort. So we have another event coming up, March 25th. Sounds like it's really far away, but it will be here before you know it. We'd love for y'all to come out. Quick picture of our team, just to give you a sense of who we are. So we have 27 staff, and we have a volunteer board of 15 as well. So we have, I want to say, 7 providers in Union County. Ron goes out there on Tuesdays, and the rest are based in Charlotte, and our board comes from both counties as well. So at this point, we'd love to take questions, and just let us know who you want to answer. Yes, Kevin.
So, and if you could repeat the question, that'd be great. 2 parts actually. Have you guys spoken to any of the Union County Rotary clubs? Cool, great. Just wanted to make sure that was in your radar. The second thing is I wanted to commend you, Angie, for what you're doing in trying to make your programs more inclusive. It's so important to, obviously, we know this is when brains are forming. It's important to get to these pre-K kids. So hats off to you guys for doing that. And I wanted to say this because I was watching a program last night, something I really don't ordinarily do, but it's, yeah, I'm sorry, there's no question. But watching a Netflix program on a young woman who was incarcerated for a homicide in Missouri, and watching her being interviewed by the police, and it really dawned on me at that point that her thinking was not what it should be. She was easily manipulated in the interview, and I can't help but think that something like this helps to prepare people for those types of interactions when they're confronted with authority figures like I was, and the table is really slanted. So that, I think that speaks to the importance of what it is you all are doing. I thank you for that.
My question for the fact, my son graduated from your program 26 years ago. And you all were the one that helped me out. I knew he was doing here age 2, and I went to a regular audiologist. They said, oh, we can test it the same. I knew they were not. Thank you.
And anyone can ask, but probably Angie is the one who could answer this, but how do you guys interface with like CMS? Like I know that if we're talking about screening for spectrum disorders, and I know a lot of kids and a lot of my former clients when I was with the Child's Place had some sort of spectrum disorder undiagnosed, and just getting anyone in CMS, or the process for getting kids tested was so far out that now they're in the next grade, and it just keeps compounding on itself, the issue. So how do you guys interface with CMS in that way in terms of catching kids early to help them with education?
Well, first of all, we're all buddies. We're all on boards together. So there's a lot of communication between us and Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. Heather Skeen is the lead speech pathologist for them. She and I work together, and we go to continuing education things and sit together, and it's constant dialogue on how those things happen. But one thing that we know is that the school cannot do it all. And I honestly think everybody that I've ever met with Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools has been intentional and meaningful, and they're doing their jobs to the best of their ability. But it is a daunting task when you think of all the languages that are in this. There's hundreds of languages in CMS. And kids that have really deep, intense needs, and families sometimes with just no knowledge base of where to even start. So while I do refer to Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, I'm also referring to Novant Behavioral Health. And I'm also referring families in to support groups. Very important that they understand there's several different support groups. The Autism Society in Charlotte does a fantastic job. And so what I do is get families connected into that Autism Society. It's run by parents of children who have autism, typically are older, and they have answers that I don't have. And they know the doctors and they know those types of connections, but I know them. So that's my goal, is to get them connected. But CMS does, I honestly think they do the very best job of it. But it is just a vast task that they have to get all these kids all the things that they need. So you really have to know everything. You have to know all the different organizations. I know a lot of behavioral and developmental pediatricians in town. And so I have to know who those are. That means I gotta sit down with family and say, who do you work with? Let's talk to you, let's talk about your doctor. You would move on, let's talk about where you need to go there. So it's intense. It's a lot of work with the parent. And in the end, a lot of that onus does go on to the parent. My job is to give them the number, the name. If I can connect them, I connect them. But I have to support that parent, because in the end, the parent has to be the advocate. There's no other way. They have to be the advocate. Just like you're saying with your grandchild. When somebody tells you you're wrong, you have to say, no, I'm not wrong. And I tell families that all the time. Sometimes it's just encouraging them, and I'll say, because they're almost always right. I mean, my experience with parents is that they're right, and they get dismissed a lot. And again, a lot of times it's not intentional, it's just lack of knowledge. And so my goal is to give parents kind of that manual and that training so that they know what to do and who to contact and how to go with it. But it is complicated. And neurodiversity is a big topic. And there's some people that really understand it, and there's some people that really don't. So we definitely are not getting kids in. Sometimes I refer these kids for these developmental evaluations, and I talk to the families and follow up, and it's 8 months before they can get the testing done. And you're right, they're in a whole nother grade, or they've missed the beginning of school because they just weren't ready. The parents didn't have resources. So yeah, well, and that's also why we go out and do these screenings. We try to go get those kids, because if they show up at 5 in kindergarten, I mean, we really missed the boat on that kid, right? We really missed the opportunity. That's why we go out and screen them at 2 and 3, right? So by the time they get into CMS, they've already got the IEP. All that stuff's already done. That's our goal, is to already have it done. So that's why that early intervention piece is really, really important. That's probably the biggest thing we do for that, is to go out and do child find.
Do you guys do that with like affordable housing communities? Like, how do you?
Girl, we've done it everywhere. I go to the pumpkin patch, and I went to Hodges Dairy Farm. I set up a table out there and ask people to do free screenings. We've gone to community events. We've gone to farmers markets. You name it. We go to we kind of quit going to the autism walk because most of those families were connected. But when we go to walks and we go to do all of those things, and then I just call directors at different schools, and I say, hey, I'll come screen your kids for free if you want. And I just set it up through preschools. We even have tried to do it through pediatricians' offices. And we had a program for a while that we were working at the pediatrician's office offering free screenings, because the pediatricians don't have but so much training in early development and communication disorders too. Yes, sir.
Got a real question this time, and maybe it's for you, but what can Rotary clubs do? Is there anything more that we can do to help support what you all are doing? Because you're hitting such a huge segment of our underserved communities.
Yeah, well, a lot of what we need is awareness. We need people to understand what the needs are in the community. And I think different clubs that really can help us in targeting those different communities is kind of nice. Like I said, we're really doing place-based work. And so having people that have connections in those communities is really nice. We need people to help on our board. We need people to help with these walks. We need volunteers for those types of things. We need you to buy your hearing aid at Charles Beach Hearing Center.
What'd you say?
Well, we did. We did. You buy your hearing aid, you get the exact same service. You're getting better service most of the time, because we care about everybody that walks in the door. And you're getting those things, and that profit goes right back into the community. But I think just making people aware that we're there and the work that we're doing, it is very, very helpful. But we need
You guys
connections.
out doing this in front of 10 clubs.
Yeah, we need connections. We need people that have connections in West Boulevard. We need people that have connections along Freedom Drive. If you know business owners there, if you know people there in those communities, those corridors that we're working in. How can they help us? How can they get us in the door? How can we get to an event? Right?
Yep.
So those are the kinds of things, like can we get to that event? We'll do the work, you know? I'm okay, I'll do the work, but I need people to introduce me and I need to make those connections. That's a lot of what we need. Do you agree with that, Shannon? That's a big part of it?
Yeah, I think awareness and like you guys probably had no idea the scope of what we do until today.
No,
So,
that's it, yeah.
you know,
We
we'd
see
love to,
thousands.
we'd love to share that with other people.
Awesome.
One more question. Do you do services with the 50 and older people?
Speech services?
Not speech, but hearing?
Yes.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is, I'm the one that pushes at my clubs, whatever. If you're 50, you need to get a baseline. And you need to start, because I couldn't understand. I've worn one since I've been 18.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't understand why my in-laws weren't involved. And my audiologist explained that at that age, their nerves are dead and that you can't recoup. They need to get that baseline at 50 and start from there. Is that right?
Yeah, she's saying to start your baseline on your hearing at 50 years old. And the truth is that those neural pathways, you know, those beautiful highways in your brain, they start filling in. Right, they do. If you don't use that part of your brain to hear, you lose it. And then I believe the statistic is it takes 10 years once somebody has even realized that they have a hearing loss before they do anything about it.
And that's me.
Yeah. So
Y'all need AARP to like train you on how to reach 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Julie and Ron will go out. We actually work with Novant. We go into a lot of different clubs. We'll come in and do free hearing screens. They have the technology. It's kind of neat. It's an iPad. And we can go out with an iPad and do a shoebox screening. And you can cast scale right there. And then they're able to then say, okay, you know what? We need to bring you in and we need to have you do a more in-depth screening and be able to tell you.
How many would like to have that done in this club?
Hey,
we can come to hearing
I was
screens.
gonna say that.
you know, and there's some environmental factors.
Interactive club activity.
Yeah.
Instead of the reading?
No. There's some environmental things that can factor into that too. Because when I was working for the FBI, 25 years, firing guns has an impact on your hearing. So if you're working in any kind of environment, you know that as well. Absolutely. Guns. That
I was
can
gonna
happen.
say the
We
masks
do custom
actually,
ear molds.
yeah, the masks actually brought, as these guys came in, my mom was one of them. She denied, do not have hearing loss. People put the masks on during COVID, and suddenly she realized how much she was reading lips.
Wow.
And she actually comes in from Eastern North Carolina to see Julie and Ron. Like she comes in from, she loves the team, she comes in and sees us
We
here.
actually have one of our highest years ever of hearing aid sales during COVID. Because so many people were frustrated and isolated, or they're on the phone and that's it. Having a hearing loss talk on the phone is very challenging. So we actually, that was like a lifeline for us.
Is there any correlation or any studies been done on the relationship between dementia, Alzheimer's, and loss of
You
hearing?
better believe
I
it.
was gonna say Julie,
And
can tell me.
depression.
Yes,
And hearing loss. Yes.
very, very highly linked, a lot of studies have been done, research out there ongoing, yes. Those Parkinson's, we're actually gonna be doing a presentation in 2 weeks for Parkinson's. Yep. Yep, so
Untreated hearing loss is a very high
diabetes has also been linked with the hearing loss, and so, yes, so the dementia, the diabetes, the memory issues, all of that, yes.
Yes, one more.
Sure.
Watch your medicine.
Yes.
Yes.
Watch your
There's
medicine.
Yes.
I just had a doctor that
Medicines.
about gave me an antibiotic. And I said, do you know the side effects? And they said, no. And I said, wait a minute. Looked it up, and the side effect was loss of hearing.
Oh.
That was just a mention about loss of hearing from medications.
Yeah.
But
Chemo
absolutely,
drugs and radiation.
And as
Sorry.
well as disfluency,
Oh, no.
as well as disfluencies, it can also cause you to stutter and have disfluencies.
Ask a question over here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. I have a quick question that just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Is there, speaking of correlations, is there a correlation between music appreciation and understanding on one hand and language development? And given your talents, I specifically wanted to ask you this.
Well, yeah, there actually are some correlations between music and language. So an example is I have a child right now that is nonverbal. And I am working with them on just trying to beat a rhythm. Just to understand the basic rhythm of conversation. I can't get him to speak right now, but I'm working on it. But that is one of the very primitive steps of that, is to help him understand. Because conversation is rhythmic, right? The timing, humor is all rhythm, right? And language understanding. So yes, there is a correlation there. And we know that music engages both sides of the brain, right? And so you do see music therapy used at times for children with language impairments. It can be useful, and we do use it in our therapy.
Sing a song, Angie, come on.
I get paid to sing, so.
Yeah.
Save it for the next meeting.
You gotta pay me if you want me to sing.
Okay, then,
Yes, Dave.
Just a comment, I have been a patient of theirs for the last 7 or 8 years. And the primary reason I went there is because of the discounted services you offer to the community. And that drove me there. And I've referred a number of people just because of that. But the other thing is I've got excellent service. Anytime I have a question or problem, I go there, they all call it. Julie is my primary audiologist, and I just appreciate everything they do. They're good crew.
Thank you, thank you, we appreciate that. We're there every day. I'm a patient, it's so great having worked there this long. We've got people that have come, that were in speech therapy, that are bringing their children to speech therapy there now. But that's the kind of thing about the 55 years, right? And then for Shannon and I, people that have been there for a while, I mean, it is remarkable to see people come back a generation later and their children are in therapy, and they were in therapy, 30 years ago.
That's
So
crust.
it's real cool.
That is real.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. I did to stop this, but we have to respect